Welcome to Focus on Business, a podcast show for photographers with me, your host, Jane Goodrich. I'm talking to successful photographers so you can learn from our experiences and have the business of your dreams. So join us and let's focus on business. Hi, so I'm really excited. Today we have the fabulous Jaye McLaughlin, and I'm very excited to have her on the Focus on Business podcast and show. And if you don't know Jaye, she is a fantastic in-home and family photographer, and she's so close to me. So we've actually been lucky enough to actually meet. Well, I've been lucky enough to meet you, Jaye.
Oh, it's mutual.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, just tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, like a little bit of a bio and like how you got started in photography, and so they can hear your story.
Sure. It's a long story, but I'll keep it short. I've been doing this. I'm an in-home newborn and family photographer in Westchester County, New York City, and southern Connecticut, rather. I've been doing it for 14 years. Before that, I was a lawyer, a patent lawyer specializing in biotech, who has always been obsessed with taking photos. I can't say I was obsessed with photography because it was a point and shoot camera that I was always using. And when my fourth child was born, I was very part-time working as a consultant for the same pharmaceutical company I had been with for many years. And that company was being bought up by a larger pharmaceutical company, and I got put on hold. I had 4 little kids, and my bosses said to me, listen, we don't know where we're going to land when this happens, but if we're still here, we want to hire you back, so just don't go get another job. And I was like, nope, don't worry about it. Here's my chance to finally, learn some more about photography. I went and took a class in my local art center, and then I took another class in a nearby high school, and then I took every book out of the library. Back then, there was no Picsello. There were no, online tutorials. There was so much less out there. But this is just photography. So it just snowballed from there. I eventually I reached out to a very new then local moms Facebook group and said, my 4 kids aren't enough for me anymore. I want practice on other families. Who wants me to take their pictures? And I did it for free for several months. This is in the it's like end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And several months in from there, I thought, what if I tried this as a business? And if it flops, then I'll go back to my job when they call me. And if it doesn't flop, then I won't. And here's where the story, I condense it. It didn't flop.
Mm-hmm.
I know they did call me, and I said, nope, sorry, I'm doing something different now. And I started my business in the very end of 2010, beginning of 2011, and it's been great since then. A lot of learning along the way, but I love it.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that. Your timing is exactly the same as mine. So we had a different experience back then, and I think listeners and photographers now, they have a wealth of information, but sometimes it's a little overwhelming. So part of, and contradictory, and also some not profitable and not sustainable. So I think even though there's so much information out there now, doesn't necessarily make it easier, right? So that's why we're trying to have this, and like that's what Picsello, we have, lots of great advice. We basically vet the audience, the experts. But if you were to go back to yourself in like 2009, 2010, what would you tell yourself? And do anything differently? Start it any differently?
Well, I did feel at the time like I had a window. And it was a very, very uncomfortable situation for me to start something like this. An entrepreneur and my name would never have been used in a sentence before. I mean, I was the girl who got the good grades and went to the right schools and got the right interviews and very lockstep sort of life. And I was happy with it. It was who I was, and I liked what I was doing. So I did feel a little bit of time pressure to start when I did.
Right.
Jaye would have waited the Jaye of before would have waited a little bit longer. And that may have served me. But I think everybody, I don't think this is unique. I sort of built the plane while I was flying it, and learned a lot of lessons by doing. I think, like you said, the resources that are available now about profitability and about how, here's some information on the kinds of things you need to start a photography business. Right. I was on like the New York State business website to find out whether I needed a license and do I need insurance, that kind of thing.
But that's what you actually need to do. So that's actually smart. Yeah. Like,
like I said, I follow directions, and I knew that I had to do it the right way. But there was just so much that you can't find out. Like, how much time does it take to market and bring in new clients? How much time does it take to prep a family before you show up? How much time does it take to cull a session, right? To edit a session, to create a gallery, to sell the photos. So not just this is how much it costs to buy a camera and a computer and a backup camera and, a new computer. But now there's all these subscriptions. Nothing is a one-time purchase anymore.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is, in addition to all the monetary costs, I had no idea how much time went in, how many hours went in. And I guess the advice I feel a little bit badly. I give it all the time, so I don't feel that badly giving this advice. But I would say have a sense of the numbers before. And even if it's a period of your time where it's sort of experimental, tell yourself and tell everybody who hires you that I'm figuring this out right now. This is an introductory situation, and keep your bookings low enough that you can use those as opportunities to figure it out.
Yeah.
So that before too long, from the beginning would be great, but I try to, not use too much hindsight. Before too long, you know exactly how much it costs in both dollars and in hours to take on one client, and that you can price yourself in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah.
That you won't lose your mind or, completely burn out or just not be profitable.
Yeah. I remember pretty early on, I think it was actually after I'd started my business, but there was a study that came out with wedding photographers, actually. And I thought it was quite interesting that it said for every 1 hour of photo shoot, there's like 9 hours back end work. And it's not just editing or culling, it's like marketing your business, which is really, and I actually tested the numbers, and it's actually 1 in 12 now because of the increase in social media,
right,
and editing. And the thing is what's interesting, and a lot of the people that we did the study with had been in business 4+ years, because there's a key turning point at year 3. What happens in year 1 and 2 is like, I've just bought my camera. It's going to last forever. I've just bought everything I need. And then by year 3, you need that new lens, or you want that new lens, or you need that new camera, or you need the new computer. So there's a life cycle of the equipment too that you don't take into account when you first start. You're like, I've just got all these startup costs, and there's a lot of future costs that you need to price in. So I love the fact, I like the introductory offer. I also like figuring out your pricing, just using a calculator. We have an easy one for you. And then saying, for my first 10 clients, or like, I'll give a discount, but they need to know what the MSRP is or whatever. And then,
I again, without all these resources, I did it for free through the end of 2010. And when they would say, oh, thank you so much for this, what can we give you? I'd say, don't give me anything, but please tell your friends about me, because, in January 2011, I'll be doing this as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how sort of they came to me. But even then, the prices were really pulled from nowhere. I couldn't even, honestly, there weren't as many of us out there. Another flip side. I mean, photographers starting out now have more resources, but they also have a lot more
competition.
So I couldn't even really look at, let's see, there's this photographer here in Westchester, I can compare myself to her.
Right.
So the prices I chose even then in my little Word document that I sent out as pricing was like a red X through an unreasonable number, right, and then an introductory number that was even more unreasonable.
Right.
But I didn't know.
Right.
And
so unreasonable for the clients or unreasonable for you?
for me.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah. I also think that, again, you can probably relate to this, Jane, is that now it's almost, I won't say expected, but it's a very common thing for when a family has a new baby to hire a newborn photographer to plan to get family photos every year. There was a big gap between like people going to Sears, where, you know, I guess every part of the country has its different. Olin Mills is talked about a lot in the course. And this idea of having you know, a local photographer come to you every year. So like I feel like I was educating badly at the time my clients too on what my services were worth, what the experience was worth.
Well, and that to me, because people are saying, oh, how does social media impact your business? I'm like, great, because now people can actually, without going into someone's home, they can actually see that they've had family photos. So yes, we have increased competition, but we also have, you know, increased demand for the services. So you know what, maybe you have to differentiate yourself a little bit more in the market than that you would have had to before. But, you know, that's all part of being in business. So if you had to move, I like this question. If you had to move your business to, I'm going to give you Hawaii. Why not? Yeah. And in 3 months, like, what would you do to get yourself ready for, apart from the legal stuff, which we know you'll take care of? But what would you do to sort of build your business?
So I guess the two big things I would do, I mean, because of the kind of photography I do, I go in home. It doesn't matter if you live in Hawaii or Alaska or New York. The inside of your home is the backdrop. Not that we never go outside, but, you know, we might go for a walk in your neighborhood or in your backyard. And so in that sense, I've got 14 years worth of photos to show. I don't have to go build a new portfolio. I guess the two things I would do, and the first one I would do it begrudgingly with, you know, kicking my feet is SEO. Make sure that people who are Googling family photographers in Hawaii are finding me. Now, I don't like doing that, so maybe I would hire somebody to do it. I don't know. I'd have to find
outsource.
Yeah. The other thing I would do is get involved in my community. In my, you know, we're a few towns away. In my town immediately, and then certainly in a few towns around me, because I've been around for so long, if you're thinking of in-home family photography, I think you know who I am. Doesn't mean you're not going to hire me. Right. I mean, that you're definitely going to hire me. But like, as long as people know that I exist and what I do and they consider me, then from there, you know, downstream of that, you know, you have to actually be there and do it. But I'd want to be on people's radar as an option for, you know, the service that they're looking for. Yeah. I guess that's two ways I'd do it.
Yeah. I think getting out in your community is actually really key. I do, and SEO, but I think it's interesting because we're in a couple of towns over, but I always joke because some kid, you know, they saw me taking photos the other day, and they're like, oh yeah, one of my clients was there, and she was like, yeah, it's Jane Goodrich, and then the kids are like, it's Jane Goodall, and I'm like, that's why I well known. I'm like, no, I don't work with monkeys, but I'm like, my name is familiar. But yeah, so if you were to, obviously SEO isn't your favorite form of marketing, but if you were to pick one and be like, all right, this is how I only ever want to market my business, what would it be? And let's say you have established business 5 years in, what would your soul?
Well, the soul, can I pick two?
Yes.
I like to write when I feel like writing. So I think that my best, favorite, most effective marketing thing is writing my newsletters. I really have been saying the same thing for 14 years. I have been lucky in the sense that what has my why, you know, what caused me to start my business, which is, you know, documenting your family, your life right now, has not changed. And every once in a while, I find a new way of saying that. So my newsletters are, you know, or waxing poetic on an aspect of that, you know, why you're home, you know, why you should spin it this way to your children or whatever. So I like to sit down when I'm in the mood. So I'm not as consistent as I would like to be, and just sort of write something like that. And then all kinds of little bullets about here's what's happening. Here's what I've been doing recently. Here's what you should take a look at, you know? So I do like that. Social media, I'm not great at. I just don't have, it feels like fitting myself into a box that's the wrong shape.
Yep.
I try, and I try to think of it. I have tried for myself to spin it in a different way. Instead of thinking of like, I want the algorithm to find me, I want people to find me, I think of it as they've already found me. Here's where they look and see what I've been up to.
Exactly.
Yeah. A little bit pieces of my personality and the kinds of work that I've done, like maybe a more up-to-date portfolio. And also on my stories, I'm always posting sort of random, more personal things about myself.
Yeah.
So they can sort of get to know me, feel like they know me before I get there. So that makes it easier for both of us to feel more natural with each other when I do arrive. Anyway, so that's my not social media, yes, email marketing. But the biggest thing I really feel like is sort of also a spinoff of being involved in my community, which is that I have for the past 6 years, wow, I can't believe it's been 6 years. When my kids started getting bigger and I started feeling like I was less in touch with the young families who were moving into the area, I had a conversation with the director of the preschool near me about the, again, sort of newish idea of having me come in and do preschool photos with more personality than the big box companies had been offering for so many years before. And the idea was that it would be just sort of, again, put my name in front of these people who would eventually want the kind of photography that I actually like to do. I thought I wouldn't like it, but it turns out I kind of love it because I do it my way, which is obviously not the same level of prep and time spent, but a lot more than just the sit on the box, fold your hands like this, smile. And so I really did. I got to know some kids. I invited in siblings like before school, obviously with the blessing of the director, and the parents get to see me work a little bit when they bring siblings in. And again, it's just another way that when somebody says, okay, who are the photographers in this area? Right. My name comes up. They might reach out and wanting something completely different, but then they find my website and say, okay, she doesn't do this, but at least they've asked the question, what about Jaye?
Right.
So those are probably my two big things. I keep in touch with email and I sort of deliver my message with email, but I put my face in front of them with preschools.
And also when you're sending them the photos, they see your brand name and then they get on the email list because they've, signed up for delivery photos. And I do actually think that that's a fantastic, I could not do it. I can't even do it.
That too. Why do you say that?
I the volume of kids and the speed of connection. I'm pretty good with kids, but the flitting. No, I mean, I'm like, I could never do mini sessions. I talk too much. It's just the way I am. I'd probably be there all day or I don't know. But I do think it's actually a really good way of them seeing you in, action. And I do think sometimes it's like, even if you're in the park or like you're outside, I know you do in home, but I mean, I've had people, I think I was in Madison Square Park. I'm in the middle of a shot trying to get these twin toddlers, like, and they're like, can you give me your card? And I'm like, I should have like a QR code on the back or a website. But on my sweatshirt. I mean, I actually had my logo on my sweatshirt and just so people could like maybe see it. But it's my work uniform. I think that's good to like be out in your community like that. I really do.
Yeah. And that is because I am at home. I don't really run into people that way, and I absolutely completely agree that it's the connection that makes the difference between the big box, and it can be done, especially with a preschooler. I mean, preschoolers are ready for you really almost all the time. They've got no hangups or anything like that. But 2 hours of a preschool versus 2 hours in home, I am completely emptied out after a preschooler because of the energy that goes into that connection that you need.
Yeah. I'm always exhausted after any shoot because I just give so much of myself. I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine that. So how do you find, or have you learned some different things? Like now your kids are a little bit older. Like how do you find like your balance? How do you balance being a working mom and, having kids and running a business, the seasonality of it? How do you do it?
Balance has always been and is still a core value of my business. Again, this kind of goes back to being a lawyer. I mean, by the time I got put on hold as a consultant in 2009, I had been, in a big firm. I'd done litigation. I'd done all the scary things that they talk about in the lawyer books and movies, So I knew that I wasn't doing this to go back to that kind of life at all. And I have always been very strict. I have always not that I have always gotten it right, definitely not, especially in the first few years, but I kind of chalked that up to learning. But yeah, I set my boundaries very early on. Like, I will take this number of sessions per week. I will take this many of sessions per weekend. I will not work in the summer. I will not work during my kids' vacation. And since then, I've gotten even stricter. And they don't have, my clients don't have to know why when they say, "Hi, I love your work. I need a photographer on, Saturday." I don't have to explain, "Oh, I'm not available on Saturday."
Right.
And I think that, besides serving me well because it serves my life,
right?
It has served me well in that people know that, like, if they want to hire me, they have to plan for me.
Yeah. I think the thing's really interesting because I've always known that you were much more strict. I was always jealous, and I think actually having my daughter made me a lot more realize certain pricing things. I wasn't charging for a travel fee, and it was costing me a lot of money to travel into the city. And I was like, okay, got to add a travel fee. And then I've always been strict on my newborns, always been during the week. But the weekends, it's family time. And I was just like, I'm never going to get any clients again. But then Corona hit, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. And you're going to be fast. And I was like, okay. And then I called it Corona confidence because I was like